Okay, so based on those awful employment or unemployment forecasts, what's going to happen to President Trump's election bid?
Definitely not good news on that front, since Trump's re-election campaign was mostly based on strong economic growth, job creation, as we mentioned before, and record highs in the stock markets. Neither of these are actually in the picture anymore. Most banks are talking now about a contraction for the U.S. economy in the second quarter that will be the sharpest in the post-World War era. Unemployment rate will definitely increase, and even if it's still early to assess economic damage, and any light at the end of the tunnel will definitely not get the U.S. economy back as it was early this year.
So, Jose, we heard the political goal there, but what does this mean for global oil supply?
It's not going to be as easy to maintain as the Trump administration wishes, even if Saudi Arabia and the Arab Emirates increase their production along with the United States. Stephen, first, Saudi Arabia has already said that it will wait and see what the outcome of not extending the waivers will have before acting. On top of that, other OPEC members, such as Iraq, have already expressed concern, saying that members should not make unilateral decisions to raise output. Meanwhile, some countries don't produce the kind of heavy oil Iran does, and which many refiners need. And most important, sanctions on Venezuela and increasing tensions in Libya pose rising risks, which will leave a very tight margin to maneuver any other shock that will endanger global oil supply.
DW financial correspondent Jose Luis de Haro in New York. Hi, Jose, lovely to see you again. Tell me, what does this mainstream approval of Bitcoin mean for the future?
Well, Kate, in the short term, we can say, and mentioning Tesla specifically, that it exposes officially the S&P 500 to Bitcoin, and this is an important fact. In the medium and the long term, it's a next step in the right direction for Bitcoin to become more of a regular currency that it can be used to buy and sell things. In this regard, it's important to have in consideration that its use is still pretty limited, and it's seen more of like an asset class of investment than as a currency per se. And that's a perfect introduction for my next question. I was going to ask, like, are investors now more focused on that profitability path versus revenue growth, as it's been the case for a lot of these unicorns going public?
Yes, I think it's an important correction that the market has gone through recently, because they're recognizing the fact that it is important to know how you're going to be profitable. It's important to understand do you have the governance structure in place to perform as a large-scale public company? And investors are starting to pay more attention to those things. And I think that you'll see, and we already are seeing, many of the valuations be reconsidered as companies are looking for, what their overall story is and how are they going to provide value to shareholders.
And then taking a look to trade tensions, even the Chinese trade deal, it's not done. There's still more phases to go. Now we have to turn to the European Union. Maybe today the USTR, it's gonna increase tariffs and maybe use that carousel strategy of changing products affected as part of the Airbus tariffs. But looking a little bit more overall, do you see the possibility of having some kind of a skinny trade deal between Brussels and Washington?
Yeah, well, this is an election year in the U.S. and we've got a new commission in Brussels, so it's hard to imagine anything big coming this year. Maybe there's something more cosmetic in the works, but certainly there needs to be a discussion about carbon taxes and the environment and digital and all that stuff. Our view is that it's still early days. Neither side's really in a hurry to get a big deal, so I think that's going to be out there. Probably after the U.S. election, we'll see what happens. But eventually, the world's going that way, so we're going to have to adjust this.
Speaking about protection, how important it's to clients, users like me, companies, governments, to be aware of the cyber security threats that they confront?
Well, I think the important thing to realize is that business has moved online onto the web. And of course, with that, criminality has come along because that's sort of a natural process. And so everybody needs protecting. And so, we see attacks against the smallest businesses, like a single flower shop somewhere, its online presence might get attacked, to the very largest businesses. So I think we need to be thinking about cybersecurity as much as we're thinking about locking our own front door or making sure our password is good on our bank.
Another day and another closing bell. It's Friday, July 2nd, and US investors decided to start the long weekend with a new record high for the S&P 500, 36 so far this year, and still counting. But why so much optimism? Well, the US economy added jobs last month at its fastest rate in nearly a year. Wages went up again, and the recovery seems to be in full steam. Let's not forget either that the Federal Reserve keeps pumping money and overflowing the markets with liquidity. So that risk-on mode is still well and very, very much alive. Meanwhile, if you are traveling by car over the long weekend, probably you'll be paying more for gas. Actually, the most you paid in the last 7 years, thanks to inflation and, of course, demand. Tesla reported record deliveries in the second quarter, Apple and Salesforce rising by more than 1% each. Both the 10-year Treasury yield and the dollar sliding to end the week. And also remember that on Monday, markets will be closed. And everyone, happy 4th of July and have a wonderful weekend.
Los países que en estos momentos están copando la atención, Venezuela y Nicaragua. Estamos hablando de crisis migratoria, en cierta forma, estamos hablando de crisis humanitaria. ¿Qué puede hacer usted y su presencia en este órgano para intentar solucionar esta situación?
Bueno, realmente ser la primera mujer latinoamericana y del Caribe en presidir la Asamblea es un verdadero privilegio, es un honor de verdad, pero también es una enorme responsabilidad. Hay muchas expectativas, a ratos pienso que se espera que yo resuelva, construya la paz mundial en 72 horas, resuelva el cambio climático en un mes y demás, pero digamos que aquí tenemos todo el compromiso. Yo tomé la decisión de incluso renunciar a mi condición de ministra de Relaciones Exteriores para dedicarme 24/7 a la organización, a la Asamblea General. Y hay que señalar, la agenda de la Asamblea General es construida por los Estados miembros. Serán los Estados miembros los que determinen cuáles son las prioridades.
Compañías como Nike, por ejemplo, se han politizado mucho aquí en Estados Unidos debido a la administración Trump. Hemos visto otras compañías como Under Armour que también se han posicionado. ¿Cómo puede afectar esto a la marca en términos de consumo y en términos de consumidor?
Yo creo que la politización de las marcas son negativas. Yo creo que tenemos que pensar en tu segmento, en los segmentos que vas a vender. Tienes que pensar principalmente cuál es tu cliente del futuro y no hablar de colores. Creo que la política es nefasta para las marcas.
Cuenta, ¿cómo estás?
Pues de momento, Gaby, cerrando una semana intensa, como bien indicaba, sobre todo con las miras puestas en los bancos centrales y en la Reserva Federal, que parece que ya deja de lado esa brújula con la que ha agraciado al mercado durante los últimos años, y esa división interna que veíamos y que mencionabas parece que hace indicar que los inversores a partir de ahora van a tener que averiguar por su propio pie qué es lo que va a ocurrir en lo que se refiere a próximos movimientos en las tasas de interés. Mencionabas los tres funcionarios que presentaban su disidencia en lo que se refiere a rebajar los tipos hasta el 1,75 y el 2% por distintos motivos, pero de momento vemos una profunda división porque sobre la proyección de futuras rebajas vemos como de los 17 miembros que participan en esas proyecciones, 7 consideran que habría que volverlas a rebajar y otros 10 estarían sopesando el mantenerlas sin cambios tanto este año como el que viene. Con lo cual vamos a tener que estar muy pendientes de los datos entrantes en un momento en el que también la Fed ha tenido que activar inyecciones de capital para garantizar la liquidez y también en un momento en el que hemos visto como por ejemplo el Banco de Inglaterra mantenía los tipos sin cambio, el Banco noruego elevaba los tipos de interés y el Banco de Indonesia seguía a la Fed y también recortaba en 1/4 de punto los tipos de interés esta semana.